You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.
Hello and welcome back to the Cricket Podcast, where we have just been over the top eight franchise leagues in our esteemed opinion, and we're now going to very quickly move on and discuss some England business with Dan Weston, who's back with us. So Ross, I believe we'll be talking England squads, England selection, and again the elephants in the room known as James Anderson and Stuart Broad.
Hold on. We need to hijack this. First of all, you didn't do messages for this, which is disgraceful. Secondly, we got some bad feedback that we didn't talk about South Africa v New Zealand. So I would like to acknowledge really quickly that New Zealand did in fact beat South Africa in the cricket, and they did it pretty convincingly.
300 runs, wasn't it?
By an innings of 300 runs. There were some pretty good performances in there.
Matt Henry, 7 for 23.
Matt Henry. And then it was a good day for Henrys, basically, wasn't it?
Henry Nicholls got a century.
Henry Nicholls notched up a century. I thought South Africa would be one of the teams that were we talked about this a little bit on the last show, didn't we? I thought South Africa would be one of the teams that would do okay. I mean, they can't bat for shit, but it's New Zealand. Everyone can bat in New Zealand. There's roads. They've got loads of tall bowlers. They bowl quite quickly. You'd think that they'd actually be okay, but they weren't. They were dismantled. It's amazing, isn't it, that like a month ago, Bangladesh beat New Zealand.
And then South Africa beat India, right? And there's that bit of like the change in performance is staggering.
Anyone shocked at all that South Africa lost so badly? And if you've got a couple of sentences on it, it'd be really good, just to prove that we do cover New Zealand cricket.
I was quite surprised. I thought it would be much more even than it was, for all the reasons that you set out, Jack. But yeah, not to be. And also, with Matt Henry, who's sort of in and out of the New Zealand side, isn't he? He sort of doesn't get a proper run at things, but mainly because when he got injured and then Carl Jamieson turned out to be ridiculous. But every time Matt Henry comes in, he does well. So, it's good for him as well. Nice to see.
Good for Henry.
Henry.
Cool.
Well,
I've dehydrated.
And that was for Kieran, wasn't it? That was for Kieran.
Yeah,
I think
that was for Kieran. There you go, Kieran.
I'm going to read out
Patreon.com/the Cricket Pod, Kieran.
Yeah.
If you'd like to support the show.
Well, we know that one person who's given us another 5-star is What a Podcast. This is from Nick George 2000. Absolutely love this cricket podcast from Max, Ross and Jack. And Dan Weston, obviously. This is the perfect podcast for those that think KL Rahul is a ball eater, Armada Bad Boys is a better name than Gujarat Lions or Titans, as I think they're now called, and those that absolutely hate Sunrisers Hyderabad. Keep going, lads. Absolutely cracking.
It's a very niche area we've got into there, isn't it?
And we just feel sorry for the Sunrisers Hyderabad fans. And if you need some emotional support, this is the podcast for you.
As discussed on the last pod. No, I hate you.
Not for Jack. Let's talk about England. So, Dan, there's a theory going around on Twitter at the moment, and I'm hoping it's not seeped into any kind of the analysts' kind of world, is that England's problem is not the bowling, it's their batting. And that's England's inability to take 20 wickets abroad is kind of the newfound kind of, this is the problem England have. It's not the point that England can't actually bat more than 2 sessions in a test match.
Yeah.
Dan, where do you sit on that mantra? Is there something to that? Is there not something to that? Because it is somewhat that thinking, regardless if it's eked into the kind of sphere of consciousness, has resulted in Stuart Broad and Jimmy Anderson being dropped.
Is that Cricketing View who was the one who starting those theories off? Yeah. I mean, I've read his post about that a little bit. I'm more in the Broad camp, I must say, in that if you can't score 300 plus with probably more than at the moment they're doing 10% of the time, if that. You've got big problems in Test cricket. You have huge problems, and if you look at the last 18 months and you look at all the last 2021 onwards, and you compare England's batting average to the field, and you compare their bowling average to the field, the bowling average will stack up okay with most of the teams, and the batting average just doesn't, and that's the problem. We've gone from 7, 8 to 10 years ago, we had, Cook, Strauss, Peterson, Ian Bell, Jonathan Trott. Those guys would walk into the team in now. Like they'd be apart from Root would be the only guy who would get into that team in the past, and the other ones wouldn't be anywhere near. And so, look, we've said this so many times on the pod. I've written about this too. Is that you can shuffle the deck as many times as you want, but there isn't the quality of player coming through to the national team from county cricket. Now, I don't necessarily look at that as an indictment of county cricket. I look at it as just maybe it's a cyclical thing, and maybe it's just a bad generation of players or bad generation of batters, because county cricket seems to be able to produce bowlers just fine, and has had no issue with producing batters in the past. So, I just whoever you pick as a batter, they're gonna struggle. I'm pleased they've given Pope a longer run, because that's obviously one guy who has, even on a road home pitch, dominated county cricket. What puzzles me a little bit is they pick guys like Crawley, who obviously hasn't done that well at county cricket, Hamid, who's struggled over the last few years. Then you've got a guy like Ben Folkes, who is obviously a class keeper, but who has been nowhere near the squad, and then now he's just catapulted back in as the sort of first choice wicketkeeper. And it just strikes me as like as this kind of, the thinking is very, very muddled. And if we've got a different, the coach has gone or whatever, and the batting coach has gone, but as far as I know, we've still got the same people in charge of selection or helping with selection. Silverwood maybe had final say, but we've still got the same group of people in that role, and then they're just picking completely different players. So there's no coherency. There's what I talk about a lot in cricket is the need for accountability. And if England were to go and, let's say for sake of argument, I was chief selector of England, right? And we went to Australia and we lost 4-0 in the Ashes, and rain saved us from the other one. Let's face facts, right? If someone says to me, if the head of English cricket, whoever it is, Tom Harrison or Andrew Strauss or Ashley Giles or whoever it was at that point, comes to me and says, "What was the cause? What was this? What was that?" I would want to be accountable. I would say these were the decisions that I took for these reasons, because that was the decision that I felt was best at that point in time for these reasons, with the most information I had at that time. But you don't see anything like this. It's all, we'll just blame county cricket and hope that it goes away. It's just nonsense. There's no accountability, and it comes back to what we were talking about in one of the previous segments about bravery and coaches not wanting to get the sack, basically. And it's like, okay, well, it's almost like it creates this culture where it's always someone else's fault. Actually, sometimes you just got to hold your hands up and say, okay, well, I wasn't good enough at this time, or we made the right decision at the time with the information that we had, but it didn't work out. That's fine. That's fine. Just hold your hands up. Be a big person. But it doesn't happen in cricket very often.
So we've got some new faces, right, in the England team. So Alex Lees has come in. Matt Fisher has come in. What can we expect to see from the Durham and Yorkshire lads?
Alex Lees has been one who a lot of people had an eye on with England potential from a very young age. I think he got Wisden Young Player of the Year when he was very young. I think he might even be captain of Yorkshire at a pretty young age as well. Now, there was, I don't know the ins and outs of it, but it looked like there was some issues at Yorkshire that kind of stagnated his career. And he's gone to Durham, and he's done pretty well, particularly when you consider that it's one of the tougher home venues for scoring runs. So, whether he's any better than a Burns or a Sibley is yet to be seen. I'm not convinced that he necessarily will be, but I do think that he's probably a better option than a Hamid at this point in time. So I don't mind the Lees inclusion. He's not. I don't think he'll be like a flamboyant opener. I think he'll be someone who might dig in a little bit, which is fine. Don't mind that at all. So yeah, I'm okay with it. But again, it just shows that inconsistency of thought. Okay, well now we'll pick Lees, but we didn't pick him before because we thought he was better. But now we realize he's not better, so we'll go with this new guy. So I don't think they know. I don't think they've got a coherent thought process. Fisher is an interesting one. He's been pretty injury prone over the last few years, and I kind of think this is what I call like a hunch pick for England, where they just love guys who bowl pretty quick. And a lot of the time, it's not necessarily what's needed in Test cricket, especially in England, and probably some away conditions as well. If you look at Yorkshire, I'm not even convinced he's the best bowler numbers-wise at Yorkshire. And certainly, I think, for me, Ben Code and even Jordan Thompson have done very, very well at Yorkshire in red ball cricket over the last couple of years. But Fisher obviously has had his card marks of being a rapid, quick bowler, which England seem to absolutely adore, and he's kind of like this next hunch pick, if you like.
Didn't that go back to Ed Smith's plan? Wasn't it? Was that an Ed Smith thing? Just pick all the fast bowlers that we possibly can for England.
Well, yeah.
What pile the injury list high and higher?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's quite interesting to go see him. Max, I know you're a Surrey boy at the heart. Obviously, Dom Sibley moved away from Surrey. Were you surprised not to see him back in the squad for the West Indies tour?
Yeah, I was actually. I don't know. I mean, supposedly the idea was he went away over the winter and worked on his game, ready for next year. Maybe he hasn't worked hard enough, or it didn't go very well. I don't know, but yeah,
they've not seen him score county runs in the winter. Yeah, that's the thing. That he's not been able to do it in December, and that's the embarrassment.
It seems strange, Now we're back to Crawley opening with someone who'll be making his debut, but to not have him.
How mad is that, by the way? That Zach Crawley was an abomination for months, like nearly a full year, and is now the only person who's in that opener spot guaranteed. Mad to me.
Yeah, but he did get 70 once, didn't he?
And it looked good.
You can't bear that.
It passed the eye test.
It did, but he did look really good, and he's tall, so it could be imposing. And this is a genuine thing. He does catch the ball.
Yeah.
A lot of the others are bad and they don't catch the ball either. He will catch it, which is it puts him at least above Rory Burns at the moment, doesn't it?
Yeah, it takes his average up to 20.
The other player I think worth mentioning is Dan Lawrence. So pretty much didn't play the last tour. Didn't play at all in the Ashes. Was there kind of the nearly man around the squad, and because of how bad England were, maybe his stock has risen a little bit. Dan, is that probably fair to say for Dan Lawrence?
His stock has risen because he didn't play. Yeah. But he hasn't had an opportunity to show how bad he is, so we won't drop him yet. Is that what they're thinking? Maybe I don't know. But that's not what I think. That's I was surmising. I mean, let's whether he gets in ahead of Pope and Bairstow and Root in that middle order is another debate, and Stokes obviously as well in that sort of top five. I'm guessing that Folkes is going to come in and bat as a specialist keeper as well. Play as a specialist keeper. Was it maybe 7?
Yeah. So Root's supposedly batting at 3. That's pretty much what the media reported.
Okay, so
it was Root's going to be at 3. So you got Crawley, Lees, Root. Who's going to be at 4? I think Stokes at 4 is too high. You either play Stokes as your number 3, or you play him at number 5 or 6.
Bairstow 4, Stokes 5.
Yeah.
Pope 6, Folkes 7.
Fair. So that's what we can kind of expect from the first lineup kind of being there. And then they've brought Parkinson back in from the cold, who's literally just clocking air miles, I think, rather than doing actually anything else for England. But actually giving a bit of competition to Jack Leach. And then they've got the battery of kind of medium pacers plus Mark Wood, really, and Saqib Mahmood, Craig Overton, Ollie Robinson, who he's the fitness angle on Ollie Robinson seems a bit like a hatchet job to me. Regardless if he is a little bit overweight or anything like that, well, we don't know that personally, right? But the hatchet job that Ollie Robinson is unfit and not fit enough to play Test cricket, I'm not sure holds much water. But we'll see.
He's done all right whenever he's played, hasn't he?
Dr. fucking Water comes to mind, but never mind. Let's talk. Let's wrap England up.
He does look like a fat man, though.
Yeah, but maybe it's just because people don't like him. That might be a thing. Like people don't particularly like his attitude. Like he's got a bit of history, but he's a fucking good player. Anyway, that kind of wraps up England. Dan, do you want to quickly talk about the retentions at the mighty Birmingham Phoenix in the 100?
Yeah, obviously they call it retention deadline day. I think it was today. Very happy with our business. We've managed to retain a really nice domestic core, which I think is pretty important, and a core that's going to be able to hopefully take us forward over the years to come as well. So it's not just hopefully a group that can compete well this year, but also in the future as well. So yeah, really happy with that. I think most teams probably looking through the lists, there's not really that many major surprises. There's obviously a few players who have been let go who are pretty good, but I think what we always have to appreciate that maybe it's not this, and this isn't necessarily sort of portrayed in the media a bit, and it's similar to the IPL. Both the team and the player have to agree on the retention. So if a player's very good and they get released, that doesn't necessarily mean that the team have made like a massive screw up because they released a bad player. It may well be that the player, one, didn't fit into their salary structure, two, didn't want to play for that team, perhaps because they've got a home ground doesn't suit them or whatever, or three, they might want to play for a different team. So there's reasons for stuff sometimes. So it's always good to see a bit of drama on retention deadline day and stuff, but I wouldn't read too much into the team's decision making. Sometimes I'll give teams a bit of a free pass in terms of
what you're saying. Reading between the lines is that Tom Banton drove to Edgbaston and was waiting outside.
It's rare you get a Peter Odemwingie reference in, Jack, and I'm pretty impressed with that.
Look, we had
Peter Odemwingie and Ali Dia into the same podcast.
Yeah, we had it's so niche that I've forgotten his name. The American that used to play up front for
Brian McBride.
We had Brian McBride on the show a couple of weeks ago.
I heard that pod when I was in India. But you talk about Brian McBride, yeah. He played for Fulham and Everton.
Hey, look, if we need to talk about Clint Dempsey, Landon Donovan, kind of Carlos Bocanegra, we can talk about these guys all day long because
Michael Bradley
and Tim Howard.
Yeah, well, we are the number one cricket podcast in the United States right now.
Yeah,
so
and this is why.
This is why. We have,
what about that
Brian
kid
McBride?
That kid who was really good on Football Manager?
Freddie Adu.
That's it.
Yeah, which is, I mean, it's pretty sad how quickly I got to Carlos Bocanegra, but let's move away from that. And we got a few questions from Patreon and Twitter. Jack, if there's anything on Patreon, raise those now because you're in charge of that.
We do, but we're going to ask Dan off air.
Fine. And then the other part is Ben Smith asks, is Will Smead the future of England's T20 side? Dan, I'm guessing that one's aimed at you.
Well, he's doing pretty well at the moment, that's for sure. I mean, yeah, it's probably not, obviously I've got him at Phoenix. We bought him in at Bangla Tigers and T10 as well. And it's probably not a secret that I rate him pretty highly.
Yeah, I mean, if Benny Howe is your Nico Cranchar and Liam Livingston's your Jermaine Defoe, Will Smead's well on his way to being your Peter Crouch and you and
100%.
your Harry Redknapp window role that you're going to continue to adopt
All
on
I-
retention
all I-
deadline day.
All I need now is a Range Rover and wind the window down to Sky Sports Studios.
Exactly right.
Do an interview through the car
Is it going to be a
window.
battle of the young Wills for that England spot?
Yeah, maybe. Well, Jax. The other part is from Vidget, who asks, do you think the IPL should allow 5 overseas players to keep the quality up now it's been expanded to 10, or keep it at 4 so local talent gets more chances since it's a domestic competition? Jack, you go with the 5?
Well, look, I don't care about it being domestic competition. I just want to see really good cricket. So I am biased here, but you know, in the English Premier League, probably the best football league in the world at the moment, they don't have a limit on the number of domestic players, do they? They're not like, oh, you must play 6 cloggers, and you have to fit the people who know how to kick the ball in around them. No, you get the best players in. I don't know. Like people say that the IPL's on a trajectory to be a 3-4 month long tournament. I think if it becomes that with say 16 teams, maybe more, I think they'll need to have at least 5 overseas players for it to be decent. Otherwise, it will be Bangladesh Premier League.
We're going to need fucking 5 overseas players to help us cover that. If we're going to need that for the old podcast. So excellent.
Yeah.
And I think the other comments, Tim, I think we've covered yours around what's the best part of England's selection policy and what's the worst. It's all bad. I think it's the answer that we've kind of got to.
I think the good thing is they always keep you guessing.
The
Lot of
entertainment
content.
And it gives
factor.
us something to talk about.
Yeah,
Gives
absolutely.
us content.
Exactly. And I think we've covered the majority of the other one. So thank you ever so much for listening. Dan, it's been fantastic to have you back on the show. It's been an
Brilliant.
absolute
Thanks,
pleasure. And congrats on the good team at Punjab Kings. We look forward to seeing them in action in the next month or so. If you have been listening, sign up to Patreon, like Jack's Queen wave that he's got there, but it's Patreon/The Cricket Pod, and get in touch with the show, which is thecricketpod@gmail.com or at The Cricket Pod on Twitter and Instagram. Dan, where can they find you?
On Twitter @SA Advantage, and if you go bored for the day and you want to read some ramblings about T20 strategy and all sorts, you can check out my Substack, danweston.substack.com.
Brilliant. Thanks, guys.
You're listening to the Cricket Podcast.